So welcome to Leadership Soundbites, and I think we're into episode 8 right now. Super excited to welcome Christopher Henry. He's Senior VP, this is a newer job for him, of Global Talent Management with Bath & Body Works. And how cool is that? Because what I understand is you can actually, Bath & Body Works is retail, and so you can go to the mall, and it's part of your job.
Exactly. I get to go to the mall and have a blast.
I
and
love
work
it.
And call it work.
I love it. I love it. So this week's topic is on the power of reflection. And so I want to kick us off with, there's a number of quotes that I ran across, and I think one of them, and I may weave in another one later on just because I can't pick. But one of them is from Steve Jobs, and it was, and I'm going to read it. You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. And I think that so strongly speaks to reflection, because reflection is on what happened. We normally don't reflect on, unless we have a crystal ball, on things that are yet to be. And so welcome. So Christopher, what are your thoughts on the whole idea of the power of reflection and reflection in general with you and what you do and this new role that you're in?
Well, I think the power of reflection is exactly that. It's very powerful. It is also critical if you want to continue to grow. And I think we all probably see ourselves as sort of under construction, under constant construction. And so one of the ways that you get to move forward and do that in a self-paced way is through the power of reflection. And you had asked, sort of related to the role that I'm in today, and we had been having some conversations prior to this with sort of like, what are the lessons learned? What has prepared me for this new role? And previously I was with a vice president with a large healthcare system. And I think what made me more prepared, or going into this role a bit more prepared than previous roles, was I actually took the time out to reflect over the previous six and a half years, kind of walking through as a leader, what might I have done differently if I had to do that over again? How would I have shown up differently? And then looking forward, leveraging the opportunity to start again, because that's what I'm doing in the new, I'm starting anew, to take those lessons learned and actually implement those in the role that I'm in today.
It's interesting when you were talking about that whole process of looking back and what would I have done differently. What struck me is, as a leader, we intend to do things right and what's right for people and the best that we can do. And I can imagine if you're reflecting over that area because of the responsibility you had, it can't be easy at times to say, you know what, there is opportunity, and oh man, I didn't realize what it was until now. And that can't be easy.
Not easy at all, but you definitely have to be open to that. I was thinking about one of the an additional quote that you had shared with me as we were kind of pondering on what we wanted to share. And the one that resonated with me most was the John Maxwell experience isn't the best teacher, but evaluated experience is. And that's so key, because truthfully, and I think if we've not done it ourselves, we have friends, family, etc., that make the same mistakes over and over again. So they have the experience. They've just not taken the time to assess and evaluate that experience for what you want to take and do differently. And so you repeat those mistakes. So again, evaluating what you may do different, what you've learned from that, how you can apply it moving forward. That really resonated with me, and it's definitely what I carved out time to do to make sure that I started this role from the most successful part of me
Mhm.
as possible.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be arduous work. It literally was a walk around my neighborhood and pondering some points,
Mhm.
or sitting out on the patio and just kind of, thinking through some things. Now, it does help me to digest my own thoughts. If I write down a few bullet points, it gets it to stick. But again, it wasn't like I was journaling, I'm writing essays
Mm.
and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so you didn't overcomplicate the process. Roko,
Absolutely.
yeah, you can over-engineer stuff and have
Yeah.
whiteboards and everything else. Roko, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm Christopher, I'd love for you to share with us and those who might be listening, because the people who might be listening might be new leaders, but they also might be experienced leaders like yourself. Maybe you could share with us a little bit about how you started doing a reflection and how it might have matured over time.
Well, I think we often start to reflect on our experiences, sort of taking ourselves out of it. So whatever what we could have controlled, because we're victims, or what I may be culpable of, because we don't want to take responsibility. So I started off thinking about what were those things or experiences in a past organizations, throughout my career that I didn't like, and how can I avoid those things in this organization? And when you look at situation after situation, what's the saying, the old adage,
the
common
insanity
denominator is you.
Oh, that one. I thought you were talking about the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again.
And that's another one.
Results. Yeah. Okay.
If you don't figure out that the common denominator is you'll do it over and over again and be insane.
What's the theme here? Oh, me.
Oh, me. Yeah. And so that's what I started to do. Initially didn't start there, but ended up in, well, what are the factors that I can control? And what I can control is how I show up. What I can control is how I engage, how I communicate, the boundaries that I set coming through the door. Those are the sorts of things that I started to think about and say, you know what, I can control a bit, or have at least strong influence over my future by learning from the past.
Yeah. What advice would you give someone who's just starting out or who wants to try reflecting for their own personal growth?
Yeah, again, I would advise that, you don't wreck your brain and making it this over-engineered process. And then I would advise that you do take away, because you can, go through that whole cycle of replaying events, etc., but just narrow it down to a couple of things that you say, this is what I can affect going forward.
I think the other thing thank you. The other thing that comes to mind for me when you're talking is reflection isn't all about opportunity, right? And so I think one of the things too, when you ask that question, Roko, and I'm thinking, identify what's one thing that worked really well that you want to keep doing. Because I think about focus feedback, right? That we would do at another organization. So it's like, what's one thing I want to keep doing that worked really well? And where's an opportunity that I can up my game? The other thing that comes to mind for me is, and I'm going to read another quote because this one, it just really hit, is we don't see things the way they are. We see them as we are. And so I think part of the reflection is ask somebody else, what feedback do you have for me? So that we have, and we talked about different perspectives before on previous podcasts, but it's like someone else's view of what took place and not just our own. And that can be a scary proposition, right? Because you're not limiting someone on what they can tell you. So it can be a scary thing, but I mean, I think there's power in that, so that you get feedback, so that you can use it to say, you know, what else is there? What little tweaks are there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, when you were talking about that, Michelle, what was coming to mind is, and again, it's when you're first getting started, maybe people are nervous about asking, being vulnerable and asking them for feedback. When I first started out, someone taught me, when you reflect, think of the 5 different senses. So if you were sitting across from you, what would that person see?
Mm-hmm.
If you were, you know, across, what would they hear? You know, what did you hear people say as a result of what you presented? So thinking through those kinds of things, what did you notice? Body language, you know, the visuals that you would have, that if you had recorded the interaction or the meeting, what would you have seen on the video? You know, so walking through those kinds of things to help you start reflect a little bit deeper about that interaction or that.
I'm grinning because one of them I thought, when you said senses, I'm like, and what did you smell? I'm like, I guess that could be part of the reflection. So
well, that could, you never know.
So maybe that's not one of them. Okay.
I like that though, because that's also a good way to develop your own heightened sense of awareness, you know, connected to emotional intelligence, and allows you to then have empathy for how others may perceive the world, take in data, etc. You know, being in the field or function that I'm in human resources, we take tons of assessments, and I'm pretty sure we've all had assessments, may it be a 360 or 180 or what have you, and you look at the feedback and like, I don't know who they're describing.
Like, wait a minute, you sure that maybe I should have included my picture? I think when you talk about that, some of the harshest critics are your peers. In those assessments and that feedback. And luckily I was forewarned about that before I got feedback on the very first one, because it's like, whoa. But you're right. And it's an interesting animal with reflection. And I think I'm going to go back to, as we caution people, because Roko, you said about, you know, where do people start? I'm going to pull Margie's, you know, what's a little bit better look like into this. Because you could completely shut yourself down and become unmotivated if it's too much. And so I just think it's that incremental improvement is so important, so that you don't get overwhelmed by all the opportunity that you may surface. And to your point, Christopher, it's all on perspective. And so you could have people that are giving you feedback that you may not want to do anything with that. You know, it's not all good feedback.
Right.
So,
and I don't think that we actually take that to heart, you know, and just in general, where, you know, the feedback, just because the feedback is there doesn't necessarily mean it aligns to who you are, you know, that it's accurate. But one, you want to be open, and that's how you build the relationships or expand relationships, to that feedback coming to you, and then honoring the fact that it is someone's perception, even if it's not how you perceive yourself. So how do I now manage that perception and reflection, and then take that going forward? And
that's it. That's a huge point. It was one of those things I was thinking about too, is that part of the reflection, because you were talking about the senses, Roko, is understanding, how is my interaction with people, how's the messaging, what am I seeing? So it's not just what people may be seeing of me, but what am I seeing of other people? Are they engaged? Are they connected? Are they rolling eyes? Are they frustrated with me? Right. And use that to be able to guide you on where some opportunity may exist, or where conversations need to happen. you know, to where you can clear stuff up. Yeah. So thank you for this. I mean, I think we could probably talk about the power of reflection till the cows come home. There's just a lot there. And I think it's a key component in personal development, is the ability to look and say, okay, here's what I intended. Here's what actually happened. And it's like a PDSA cycle, by the way. Okay. And I'm going to study it and then I'm going to adjust. So reflection is key to that. So here's my last question around the virtual room that we're in.
Okay.
What do we want people to walk away with? What's one thing, Christopher, that you want people to walk away with from our time today?
That reflection can be an essential tool in your toolkit for auto development or self-guided development.
I love the auto development.
I do too. I love that term, auto development.
Auto development. It's just this wire it in. Roko, how about you?
Yeah, for me, I echo what Christopher just said, and I would add, you can do it in minutes. I think you've used the term with me before, Michelle. You know, you don't have to over-engineer it. It just takes minutes.
Yeah, and I would agree. And the last thing I would add on to it is, and it can take different forms. So it isn't necessarily if somebody journals and that's their preferred method of doing reflection, but you're not a journaling person, don't think that that's where you have to go. You do the easiest path for you, just start doing it. And part of it could just be thinking. So thank you very much. I've enjoyed this time with you guys, and I look forward to your comments and feedback too, listener world, on what we can talk about next, or your thoughts on reflection or personal stories. Until next time, Leadership Soundbites, we're out. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.